They're not just going to talk about taxes. They're going to map out all your entities and assets too. We do an asset review, not just a tax review, if that's what you want to focus on. Is your estate plan in order? When was the last time you updated your estate plan and trust? Oh my gosh, there's so many cool strategies.
Welcome to the Wealth Strategy Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy podcast, where we help entrepreneurs like you exponentially build wealth through passive income to live a life of freedom and prosperity. Are you tired of paying too much in taxes, gambling your future on the stock market, and want to learn about hidden strategies for making your money work for you? And now your host, Dave Wolcott, serial entrepreneur and author of the best-selling book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's show on Wealth Strategy Secrets. Today we're joined by Mark Kohler, founding partner at KKOS Lawyers. Mark is devoted to aiding clients in navigating complex legal and financial terrains to realize their American dream. He also co-founded and serves on the board of the Directed IRA Trust Company and also initiated the Main Street Certified Tax Advisor Program. As the co-host of the Main Street Business Podcast and the Directed IRA Podcast, Mark demystifies intricate subjects such as legal and tax strategies, asset protection, retirement planning, investing, and wealth accumulation. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave. This is awesome.
Mark, I am so stoked to have you on the show. You know, around my journey for many, many years in trying to create wealth and really advance my wealth, I was constantly perplexed with taxes, getting to the end of the year or even worse, getting to March and finding out that I had a massive tax liability that I had no idea, number one, what it actually was. Everything my tax preparer did was in the rear view mirror in terms of, looking at my taxes in the past and just saying, well, this is all we can do. I mean, maybe they would find a couple of deductions kind of here or there. And I realized really that if you look at the actual wealth destroyers, taxes are literally your number one biggest wealth destroyer. Therefore, it's actually investors' biggest opportunity to reduce their taxes, look for more strategies that can take that capital and then convert that into assets, start driving cash flow and things like that. So really excited today to have you kind of break down, some of the magic that you have been providing people. And maybe we can start actually with just mindset, because I think that's where it all started for me, is really trying to understand that, taxes aren't just a penalty, right? But taxes are really a series of incentives for business owners and investors if you can kind of shift, your thinking.
Yeah. And the misnomer is so many people think, well, the taxes are what they are, and my account's just going to plug it in. There's nothing I could have done. And what happens, I'm sure many of your listeners here, they fall into this weird vortex of going to their accountant going, well, can't we do this? Or couldn't I put my kids on payroll? Or couldn't I self-direct my Roth IRA? Or how about a solo 401k? Or can I write off a trip with my family for a board meeting? And you bring up an idea, and what's the accountant do? They shoot it down. They're like, oh, that's too aggressive. That's too risky. And no, it's not. I don't teach aggressive, risky strategies. But you take it to your accountant, it's scary for them. Because think about it, Dave, if they say, oh, yeah, we could do that. Now, two things happen. One, the accountant feels like an idiot because the client brought them an idea. And then number two, why didn't we do it last year? And now the accountant feels like, if I got liability, how did I? And so they don't even want to go there. So what do they say? Oh, it's too aggressive and you can't do that. That's their only option. But what they don't realize is the client's like, that's okay. Let's just start going in the right direction. Can we have a conversation, And it's just a terrible, broken system that way. But we've got to be the captain of our own ship and change the dialogue.
Yeah, Mark, tell me a little bit about the industry. Because as I went through that process, I literally, every year, I fired another CPA. It was just year after year. I said, okay, maybe I need someone who's got, more expertise. You need a big four firm, right? I paid more and more money for tax preparation every year, thinking that, I just wasn't working with the right expert. But it seems to me, in my estimation, 99% of the industry are actually just tax preparers, and they're not strategic tax planners.
Yeah, gosh, it's sad if it really is 99%. I think it's around 90%, but finding them is a challenge.
Right.
So the industry, as accountants, and I've been to therapy for years to get where I'm at here, Dave. So the problem is accountants go to school, they learn how to work in this paradigm, this box, and who are our accountants? They were the conservative, up in the band on the bleachers. They weren't out on the football field. They weren't smoking pot under the bleachers. They're up there just following the rules, And so they're gonna be the accountants for our biggest cost in our lives, the most conservative group on the planet, and they also struggle communicating. And I've been there. I know. I mean it. It takes a lot of work, and so accountants are just built differently. And so if we go into the relationship knowing that, and this is the biggest point I want to make to your listeners today, I've got some hot tips here. I'm going to give you guys some actionable items for sure, is you've got to be the captain of the ship. You can't let your accountant drive the ship. They're there as a resource to you. And if they're not providing ideas, strategies, and concepts and willing to have a conversation or pick up the damn phone or make an ongoing appointment quarterly or something, you've got the wrong accountant. And so we'll talk about it. I've been building a network of accountants now for the last 2 years and just started taking my training internally with my team and creating a certification program for accountants around the country. And I have a network, so I can help you find someone if you need to upgrade. But the point is, no matter who you get, and I love, Dave, that you were on that quest, that search. Once you find them, you've got to demand, we're going to meet quarterly. And the most important meeting is the fourth quarter. The game over on December 31st. That's our busiest time. Me as a tax advisor in our team and my certified advisors, we're not busy in March and April. I don't care about April. Freaking punt the football. Extend. 60% of my clients extend anyway. But if you don't hit all your strategies in November, December before the buzzer goes off, it's over. And so we've got to realize that planning is in the second half of the year. We're thinking outside the box. We're having conversations, and you are driving the boat, the ship, whatever, and you're saying, we got to talk, and I've got some ideas. And if they shoot it down, and if they're demeaning and jerks, which they can be, you say, see you later. And they're going to take the high road. They're going to be like the high horse or whatever. They're going to be like, oh, you just don't know. No. Freaking A. I'm a lawyer. I'm a CPA. I've worked at the Big Four. I've worked at the tax court. I'm on the AICPA board. I know what works, and we can go on and on. So I just want people to feel confident that it just is what it is. There's good accountants out there, and there's bad accountants. You got to find the right one.
100%, Mark. So glad that you gave that piece of advice, right? Because, it all starts with that mindset and that education. Right. So when you know what that is, and then you can actually start to ask the right questions, because just as you pointed out, right, they're a resource. So if you're looking for them to come up with the ideas for how you're living your life, how you're running your business, they're not going to be able to do that. But if you're educated and you have the insights, right, of some of these strategies, then you can start to leverage them better, right, to say, hey, can we do this? What about this, right?
Yeah, and I like what you just said there. I was on a podcast recently where literally after having this dialogue, the interviewer said, yeah, I just want to find that accountant so I can set it and forget it. No, you're missing the point. You don't need to be an expert. And I love what you just said. You nailed it, is that you have to know enough to say, okay, here's my 20 or 30 strategies. I may not be able to take advantage of all of them every year, but let's talk about it. You want to know the secret, everybody? My wealthy clients like to talk about taxes. They get it. They realize, ooh, how can I put my kid under age 18 on the payroll? Oh, I got a kid at college. Can I get a rental property in the town where they're going, put them on as a manager of the LLC, 1099 them for their tuition and take a better write-off? Yes. Boom, killer conversation. And so all of a sudden, you may not be in the weeds, but you can see the forest. And I've got a podcast with 4 million downloads, a YouTube channel with 15 million views last year of just the basics that equip you guys to be freaking ninjas. And then when you go into your accountant, you're both on the right side of the table. You're not across from each other. You're on the same side of the table, looking at your return, rolling up your sleeves. How fun would that be?
Yeah, that's excellent, Mark. And, again, thinking back on my journey, last year, my marginal effective rate was 4%.
Woo.
And that did not happen overnight. I can tell the listeners out there, right? Yep. And while I do have an amazing CPA team on my team, it really has been this education, right? And I would attribute probably 50% of that to, me going deeper and learning more, which is where, the opportunity is, right? So you kind of couple that together, and then you make, progress over the years. So now, today, every time I make a decision in my business, anytime I spend money in my family, anytime we do anything, I always think about tax implications. Yep. And, does this make sense? Or, how could we actually change it to be more tax efficient?
I love it. And some of you may be going, effective rate, 4%. What the hell is Dave talking about? Let me just tell you the math on that. You take your gross income of everything you took, of the money you made before your kind of traditional write-offs, and then you divide that by your taxable income. Your tax. Like, what tax am I paying? We don't want to look at taxable income. We want to look at your gross. So on your gross divided by your actual tax you pay, Dave's figured out I'm around 4%. Now, it was interesting. Warren Buffett, it was released about 3 years ago, was at about 12%, and his secretary was in the 20s. And it was because Warren Buffett was, again, implementing strategies, long-term and short-term, so he could look at, here's my take-home income. And that's what I know I say gross, but you're looking at what am I taking home divided by my actual tax. That's your effective rate. Even though you might be in the 30% bracket on the dollars, and that's cool, but what's the effective rate when I look at what I really take home and use? And that's where it gets to be tricky and fun, and it gets to be exciting. And so, anyway, the mindset, let's just summarize. People, get engaged. I'll give you some resources here before we get off the show. You can have some places to start learning some basics. I've got a 30-point ultimate tax strategy guide on my website for free. It's like 10 pages. Just know it. Just review it. Easy stuff like that. So you're going into a conversation with some talking points. And I think that's just the number one thing. Captain your ship and just know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, so let's jump into that, Mark, so we can make this super actionable for the audience, right? What are some of your top tax strategies? And let's also talk, active income versus passive income. We do have a lot of folks out there who are W-2. They're trying to maybe transition to business owners, but they have less tactics that they can actually deploy. So what are some of the ones that you like?
You bet. Now, I'm not going to get blamed for any bad reviews here. So this is on you. Now, we have two choices.
Yeah, we'll take the risk. Let's do it. No worries. Let's do it, Mark.
Here's our choices. You get door number 1 or door number 2. I did not watch Price is Right this morning, but okay, door number 1, I can rattle off like 10 cool strategies, but some of you might start swimming going, holy shit, how do I, what? And then, I hope I pique some interest here in these 10 strategies. Some of you got to do a little deep dive. I go on podcasts and I'll talk about one strategy for the whole show or 2. And so I get in the sense from you, we're going door number 1, rattle off some kickback.
We're going for 10. This is a very sophisticated audience, Mark. Okay. So let's bring it.
Okay. All right. You keep the list. All right. If I lose my train of counting here. Okay. Number 1, I'm going to go with and we're going to have fun with 10. Let's see if I can pull this off. 1 is the S corporation, as in small corporation, S corp. To stay away, small business owners should be staying away from the C corp. The S corp is the number 1 strategy for every small business owner: dentist, doctor, engineer, anesthesiologist, landscaper, hairstylist, restaurant owner, attorney, CPA, influencer, online marketer. S corporation is where you save on FICA. And too many accountants have a stick up their butt and are worried about salary. We can drive down salary so much further than people realize. I've interviewed IRS agents on my own podcast. I've gone to every reasonable comp training and read every case in the country, and I teach classes to other CPAs on this. If your accountant is scared of their own shadow on the S corp, you got the wrong accountant. So know your S corp strategy. Number 2, and I already alluded to it, getting your family on payroll. family, and I'm going to say kids on this one. If you've got young children under age 18, it's a whole other strategy. And you do not give them W-2s and 1099s, especially if they're under age 18. Once your kids hit 18 or older, we're going the 1099 route. And all of your kids, high school and up, should be on your board of advisors or board of directors. If you, and all of you listeners, have at least one effing LLC or a corporation, make sure you have a family board. Because now when you're doing your family trips twice, 3, 5 times a year, whatever, at least annually, for good asset protection as well. Don't forget, I'm a lawyer here. I love bringing the law and the accounting together. We want a board meeting that's a tax write-off for travel and dining for sure. We used to be able to, enjoy the entertainment deduction, but that's off the table. But travel and dining on a regular basis with our family, and you alluded to this too, Dave, right? You want to take your family and take a freaking write-off, but you're going to document, you're going to teach your kids financial literacy, and you're going to take write-offs. You should never, ever, ever pay for your kids' stuff. You take a write-off and they pay for their own stuff. I don't care if they're 4 years old or 24 years old. That's how it works. Number 3, I'm going to go with just tax-free income. The Roth IRA is not utilized enough. And I'm talking about building Roth IRAs for your kids, yourself, your spouse, the whole 9 yards. And we're talking about the mega backdoor Roth. We're talking away 60 grand in a Roth a year for husband and wife for a total of 120 or more this year. There are some mega Roth strategies that only the rich utilize that are freaking amazing. We can invest our Roth in what we know. You followers of Dave know he's got deal flow. Quit doing deals with Dave. Quit doing them. Let your Roth IRA do those deals. Now you're making tax-free income for life. Mitt Romney's story, 100 million Roth. Peter Thiel, $6 billion Roth. It's out there, and they all started with 5 grand in a freaking Roth IRA. Learn it. Number 4, for those that have a big fat W-2, I love the Airbnb loophole right now. It'll probably get shut down in the next couple of years. I myself bought 2 Airbnbs last year. The Airbnb loophole does not require you to be a real estate professional. You just have to show some material participation in the first year, and then I can do a cost seg and take a massive tax write-off. Now, we're hoping Congress comes through with an increase in the bonus depreciation before year end. Presidential year, who knows, buckle up. But we want to see depreciation flow through onto your return, as you referred to in those passive losses. And an Airbnb allows you to get out of that whole regimen of proving you're a real estate professional, which I'll mention number 5, and I'll shut up, Dave, and you might want to unpack one of those for a moment or have a question. Number 5, and then we'll do our last 5, is just frankly, the real estate professional, which is another route you can take. And I'm going to couple that with self-rentals. Your first best renter is yourself. So if you're renting from a building, someone else in your business, a building, a condominiumized office location, a strip mall, whatever, warehouse, storage unit, quit renting from someone else, rent from yourself. There's a -4 election that requires, again, no real estate professional classification. I can depreciate the hell out of that and flow that through against my W-2 or other income. So this is the dentist with an S corp paying themselves a low salary and then boom, renting their own building from themselves and depreciating the hell out of that building, which you normally can't do just a 2-3 single family home rental and do that unless you're a real estate professional. So know those rules. That's 5 right there. What are you thinking? What are your thoughts on that?
So totally love it, Mark. You are just, you're totally nailing it with that. And then, for me to emphasize for the listeners, the reason why this is so absolutely important is we consume ourselves with thinking about yield on particular investments. The market's doing, 10%. I can get a 15% return on that one. That one's maybe even 17%. It's huge, right? What's the IRR? And we're always doing these calculations. But what we're not doing is really thinking exponentially. And if you really want to play the game of wealth creation, you have to be an exponential thinker. So the points that Mark just made are absolutely huge. If you can reduce your taxes by 10 to 20%, stack those on top of that 20% return and that next best investment you got, and now you've all of a sudden given a lift of 40%, right, to your investing capital, and then compound that out over the next 10 years and see where you end up.
No, it's so funny. I have 2 conferences a year. They actually do sell out. We're continuing to expand our events. It's called Tax and Legal 360. Our next one will be in December in Phoenix. But I try to price them affordably. and get business owners to come and bring their kids or spouse or teenagers or whatever and just learn about tax planning. And it's funny, some other influencer that's going to help you make millions charges $5,000 for a freaking conference, and people are falling all over themselves to go to a conference and learning about how to make money. But, I don't want to go to a tax conference that's a third of the cost to learn about how to save money. People, it's yin and the yang. It's freaking A. Just spend 1/10 of the time you think about doing deals over on saving money. It's unbelievable. And that's what the rich people do. Quit chasing the freaking silver bullet, whatever, of making money. Let's try to save some. I love Warren Buffett. Again, I never quote him really, but I love when he said just the other day, he said, hey, I'm not into get rich quick schemes. I'm into get rich slow schemes, because those are what really do it. And it's saving money. So drives me nuts.
Yeah. What if everything you thought you knew about investing was wrong? Would you like to create a wealth strategy like the top 1% have and get exclusive access to top private equity deals that provide downside protection, tax efficiency, predictable cash flow, and have a lucrative upside? Discover how with the Pantheon Advantage and join our investor club today at pantheoninvest.com.
Okay, ready for 5 more?
Stuff. All right, 5 through 10. Let's get
5 more. Let's just hit some of the basics that are totally overlooked as well, and then I'll throw in a couple big ones. Home office. It's not a high risk strategy, and I love the home office. I love taking the home office strategy on due to my rental properties. You can have the administrative office exception at home, even if you have a brick and mortar. So many accountants miss the boat on that. But what's cool about, not only it's a minor write-off per se, but what it does is unlock the auto deduction and mileage. Because once you have a home office, boom, I go to Costco, I go to Staples, I go to Apple Store, I go to Best Buy. Now I'm leaving an office space. I'm not leaving home. So it can unlock a much more robust auto deduction when you have a quality home office deduction. Now, we can have fun with that. Let's just go over to auto. And you may think, well, Mark, auto's boring, mileage or depreciation, whatever. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that Trump threw down 4 years ago, 5-6 years ago? Now, boy, time flies. Was the biggest change in the auto strategy since Ronald Reagan 35 years ago. And the deductions with the bonus depreciation and 179 and the luxury auto limits raised dramatically. The auto deduction, there's a lot of golden nuggets in there. And to think outside the box, I'm talking about your RV. I'm talking about your airplane. I'm talking about second cars. The cars the kids are driving, motorcycles, every vehicle you freaking drive that has anything to do with your business could be a massive write-off. I was at an RV conference yesterday, helping people write off RVs as a work vehicle for the conferences they go to and the businesses they're doing and the rental properties they're restoring. We got to think bigger here. Okay, so that's 6 and 7. Let's go deep on one. Let's go 8. Cryptocurrency. A lot of clients are going to have appreciated real estate, appreciated stock and investments, syndications, and crypto. What are we doing now? Capital gains, great, I get it. But are we using the CRT, the Charitable Remainder Trust? I have 2 attorneys, that's all they do right now. It's just so busy because we can take appreciated assets, pop it into a CRT, sell them completely tax-free, create a stream of income, asset protected for the rest of their life. And they can continue to invest the same damn money that they just got from the sale of the asset. It's incredible. And the CRT, and I like the CRUT, the Charitable Remainder Unit Trust, there's about 30 variations. Get a second or third opinion. We don't charge more than $8,000 to knock out a CRT. Be careful if someone tries to sell you one for a lot more. But the CRT is a hot strategy. All right, I'm going to go with, again, back to some little ones that are just so important. Electronics, cell phone, equipment, supplies, home office furniture, anything you buy, and again, the Apples, the Best Buys or whatever, should be a write-off. And this also goes for your kids. The cell phone is 100% write-off, the service and the phone, as long as you can show you have a home phone for personal use. I think I plugged a phone in the wall like a Winona Ryder Stranger Things phone just to show that I got a home phone, and then it unlocks all the cell phones. Because again, my kids and family, if I'm paying for their cell phone, now of course I'm launching my adult ones. I'm not paying their cell phone anymore. But as you launch family members, you may be covering their cell phone. Well, I'm sorry, did you say your board members? The people on your board you need to talk to and collaborate with? The people that are still helping with some marketing and some bird dogging, some deals and helping advise? the electronic seduction is alive and well, especially the cell phone, and we need to integrate that. I'm going to go with travel again. Travel is so important. Every trip you take should be to go to a conference, meet with a client, meet with a vendor, meet with a customer. You can write off 100% of airfare, hotel, Uber, Airbnb, taxi, valet, everything when you're traveling for business. And guess what? It unlocks dining. Because see, when I'm traveling for business, I don't even have to talk to anybody about business because I'm on a business trip. So I was in New York the other day. I was speaking at a conference on one day, and see, you can write off the day of travel, the day of the meeting, and the day back of travel. So I may have a travel on a morning, speak in the middle of the next day, and travel out in the evening of the third day, and I wrote off 3 days. And if I stopped and picked up a slice of pizza on 34th, that's a write-off because I'm there on business. I didn't have to talk to anybody about business. And so it's just a huge write-off that so many people are missing. Number 10, do you have one? Like one that you're like, oh, Mark, I heard this or that. Or I've got a couple more I could throw out. Anything comes in your mind that you've been wanting to ask about?
I'll give you a break here and throw in something that I think is interesting. People don't really think about, right? So in reality, right, most of the tax advantages are really structured towards business owners.
Yes.
So if you're a W-2 out there, right, and you're like, hey, maybe I'm a doctor, I'm a pilot, this is my career, this is what I'm doing, right? Well, how about thinking about either your spouse, a side hustle to actually create a business that can then start taking advantage of some of those deductions that you thought. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
I love it. Yes, I love it. In that fact, on a lot of my lists, business ownership is number one because it unlocks so many others. I love it. Now, 45% of adult working Americans now have a side hustle, another source of income through a 1099. If you're getting a 1099, that's a side hustle. Because many of you, I have a doctor right now as a client. I just spoke to him yesterday. He gets a W-2 from the hospital for ER, and then he's in a practice with as a W-2 for a big, large practice group. But then throughout the year, he'll get called in to speak at conferences. And he'll also get some one-off requests to help with another clinic or this or that. And they just 1099 him. So we were talking and doing some strategy, and I go, well, you don't have any business income? He's like, no. I go, holy, you don't get a 1099 for anything? Well, yeah, I get a 1099 because I speak at these. Dude, that's a side hustle. And his brain was just like, what? And I'm like, yes. Anytime you get a 1099, that's a business. And it's just like this gateway drug to saving taxes. And it was just like, you didn't get that. And I'll throw this out too. A rental property is a business. If you own a rental property, now I've got a business trip on the horizon or whatever, all the tools, supplies, Home Depot, Lowe's. And if you're married, your spouse may be the manager of that real estate venture. Now you could be talking about a real estate professional status. So all of these little strategies with real estate are a business. And so just thinking broader, and I love that. That's number 10. Let's think outside the box. Use our side income as a business income strategy. It may not require an S Corp. Let's pop it on a Schedule C. But now I'm taking write-offs for paying my kids to help in that side hustle too.
Yeah, awesome. Another big one we have for a lot of people who have been fortunate enough to exit their businesses or have a large, liquidity event, and they're trying to figure out how to offset capital gains. You have any top strategies around that?
Well, the CRT is a big one. And probably the number one tip there is don't do the deal until you talk to at least 2 tax strategists. And the current tax strategy person you're talking to, remember your preparer that you meet with once a year that tells you you're crazy and you can't do anything? They're probably not the one to call. So I'm going to give out an action item here, and that is give our law firm a shot. Just do a review. Do a consult. We do a comprehensive tax consult for around $1,500. You get on a call with a real tax lawyer on Zoom. I've got 14 tax lawyers that are trained to be mini Marks right now. They're out maybe a week or two. We're busy, but it's a boutique firm. We help clients all over the country. We've been growing at a 30% clip for 15 years. We're just boom, 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 and we try to manage that growth. But you'll get in, you'll get a review, and you can bring the transaction to the table before you do it. When you show up after the fact and go, oh, I got this big capital gain. Well, what the hell are we supposed to do? I mean, you already pulled the trigger. when you're locked and loaded, call us. And so do a review. We'll build a trifecta. That's one of my other tips. We'll build a picture of your overall tax and legal life. Where's your revocable trust in the mix? How's your asset protection? What if you were to get into a lawsuit? What if do you have a teenage driver? How much equity is in your home? What's in your retirement account? How much debt do you have? How much life insurance do you have? What's your overall coordinated plan? That's called a trifecta. And my attorneys will build it for you on the call, make it look pretty, send it to you with some action items. And if there's an idea out there, my guys are going to share it. My guys and gals, they're going to share it, or you're going to go, okay, maybe I'll throw out other Hail Mary to another tax strategist and see if they've got something. But it's okay to get a second opinion. You're not cheating on your accountant. That's okay, so important.
Yeah, no, that is really sage advice. So I went through an exit process, and again, going back to my earlier comments on the 99%, all of the lawyers that you talk to around M&A, all of the CPA advisors, when you try to talk about these strategies around your wealth, they have no idea what you're actually talking about.
No.
But however, if you're using someone like, Mark's firm or someone who really understands this, you can use this as a key part of the terms and really walk away from that table with so much more in your pocket.
Yeah, and let me say something on that too, Dave. I'm glad you brought that up. If any of you are doing a big M&A deal, merger and acquisition deal, you're doing a big exit, you're dealing with some, a hedge fund or some big deal, whatever, don't call me. I'm not that guy. I know my lane. My lane is not doing big corporate deals trying to get you the most money on an exit. That's not my lane. But when that money's about to get cut to you in a check and how you're going to put that on 1040, that's my freaking lane. That's what we do in a tax law firm for Main Street Americans. And when we show up at the table and go, whoa, Dave here is going to get a check for $5 million, or we're going to do this. Can we talk about the character of that income? Is it going to be short-term, long-term capital gain? Is it going to be received over this amount of time? Is there a tail on that? Is there a 1099 for some consulting on the back end, whatever? And then what happens, I'm going to forewarn you right now, all of those big suits from the big city that think they're kick-ass are going to demean me and you for bringing it up, because they're all this shit and they think they're the shit, and it pisses me off. You've got to stand up for yourself and go, slow down, stay in your freaking lane. I'm going to talk to a tax strategist. They're dying to get the deal done. And rightfully so. What they're worried about, I'll be honest, they're worried about the tax guy screwing up the deal. They really are. And I get that. Yeah. Because there's some stupid tax people out there that just blow it up and the guy walks away from the table. But we're deal makers, not deal breakers. And so you've got to assure your big city corporate lawyers that are doing your deal that it's okay, I'm not walking away from the deal, but I need my tax guy at the table, and he's a deal maker, not a deal breaker. And a lot of times when I show up in those deals and all this, my phone is blowing up after the meeting because they're like, we got 5 other deals. Can you come to the table, please? Because they're starving for a guy that knows this too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really sad because, people work all their lives to build up their businesses and equity. They finally have this liquidity event and they're just not getting the right advice. And then they find out, after the fact, and it's really too late. And no one is incentivized to support you, because all those other advisors sitting around the table in that transaction are actually, they're just going to get their fee for closing the deal.
That's right. They don't care.
That's how it works.
Yep. Yeah. They just don't want the deal blown up.
So, Mark, why don't we transition then into asset protection, your other lane, which, again, I wrote about this in my book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy, because I believe so much in tax, in asset protection, which, to your point, it's the less sexy side of wealth, creation, but, wealth preservation is paramount as well. And we can be working so hard despite whatever your net worth number is. You have a teenager, right, that's driving or something that can just happen in today's litigious world that we live in. And you could really jeopardize all of that, right? So tell us, what are the top mistakes people are really missing when it comes to asset protection?
Great question. I'll do 2 or 3. The first one is people go out and buy way too much of asset protection because there's a lot of scam artists in this area. and you've probably faced this too. You go out there and you're like, I better do some asset protection. And then some idiot's trying to sell an entity in Delaware or Wyoming or Nevada or offshore, and you got to do this irrevocable trust, and our retainer is $20,000 and some stupid thing, right? You've seen it. And it's a jungle out there in the asset protection world. And so what happens is either business owners get taken advantage of and buy way more asset protection than they needed from crap that doesn't even work, or they walk away from the whole conversation because they're frustrated and they're like, I can't go there because I don't know who to trust. And they get apathetic and do nothing at all. So what I want to let all of you know, and this is super important, is be patient, start to consume just like tax strategies. And there's a list of things that work and that make sense and are affordable. And I'll forewarn you right now, anybody that wants to sell you an asset protection plan, anybody, I don't care how big their law firm is and how much someone said you should trust them, if they're charging you over, I'll even say over 10 grand, it's certainly over 15 or 20, and it has anything to do with an irrevocable trust or offshore, freaking run for the hills. Now, if you're worth 100 mil and you've got a team of asset protection attorneys that have been vetted top to bottom, you might spend that much. But for the 98% of us Main Street Americans with small businesses, we don't need that crap. And it's scary and it's dangerous and it has tax time bombs in it. That's point number one. So don't give up. Be cautious, be careful, learn enough about it. I've got chapters in my book on a good asset protection basics. You can do it. The second thing is going into it in baby steps, or just when we want to lose weight, we don't go out and buy a pair of jeans that are too small. We work it off, we go buy a pair of jeans when we're ready for it. Asset protection is the same way. A lot of the salesmen out there are trying to oversell more asset protection than you need. And so do something, don't walk away, but let's start with, how do we protect our home? I have a whole chapter in my book, Tax and Legal Playbook. How do I protect the equity in my home? And it's going to vary by state, age, equity, plans, what do I want to do? And then you're going to say, okay, how about my retirement accounts? How about my business, my rental property? You're going to have a different strategy for every one of those. And that's probably my final tip is number 3. And I'll jump back to 2, is this number 3, there's no freaking silver bullet. Yeah, everybody's like, I need to do asset protection. I'm going to write one check and be done, and I'll talk about it in 5 years. No, it's an ongoing whack-a-mole of trying to protect your assets. And so don't be looking for that creme de la creme, one check and I'm tapped out. That's not going to happen. And so go back to step 2, which is just start adding some basic asset protection measures. Some of the best things you can do is, why don't we maintain our freaking entities? How many of you have done your minutes for the last year? How many of you had a board meeting? How many have done your even BOI or FinCEN report this year? How many have a quality set of books without commingling, and you're doing good contracts without your name on them, and your title is proper on all your real estate into the LLC or your revocable living trust? I know some of you are already cringing. It doesn't take a lot of money to just take care of business at home. So many things you can do.
Yeah, really great points, Mark. I find that when it comes to asset protection, again, I think it's the knowledge and trying to get the right knowledge from the right resources to make the right decisions, and it can be quite a complex topic to really figure out. And again, everyone's busy, right? We're trying to make money, we're growing our businesses, we're raising our families. So thinking about it can be tricky, but the importance cannot be overstated.
No. And I'll say, I've got a podcast now we'll hit 500 episodes this fall. Every couple of years, we do a 3-part series on asset protection 1, asset protection 2, asset protection 3. You can go see it in our podcast. It's called the Main Street Business Podcast, Main Street Business Podcast. And just look up the asset protection podcast and you'll be like, oh my gosh, it's really not that complex. It's the people trying to sell crap that make it complex and create fear so they can sell their garbage. And so Once you go in with that mindset, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can do this. And if you like reading, I've got the books, I've got my YouTube channel. When you do your consultation with one of my tax lawyers, they're not just going to talk about taxes, they're going to map out all your entities and assets too. We do an asset review. not just a tax review, if that's what you want to focus on. Is your estate plan in order? When was the last time you updated your estate plan and trust? It just, oh my gosh, there's so many cool strategies.
Mark, this has been such an amazing discussion, so much value. I think the listeners are really going to enjoy this. But if you could really boil it down to just one piece of advice that would really accelerate people's wealth journeys, what would it be?
Well, I'm going to go back to the thing I said at the very beginning. And you may not like to hear this, but it's the truth. And it's what wealthy people do. They captain their own ship. If you think you're going to find that perfect accountant you can meet with for 30 minutes a year or 30 minutes a quarter and forget about it, you're tricking yourself. That asset protection review should be twice a year with a lawyer that gets it. You should be actively involved in the conversation. One of your podcasts you listen, if you don't like me, fine, don't listen to me. Find a good, and there's not many asset protection tax podcasts that are good out there. There's a good, I follow some guys too, gals, but have a source. Get educated enough to be dangerous and manage your operation. And don't think this is something you can just sub out. It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
And so once you can get over that and just embrace it, it's like, and you make it fun. It's like going shopping when you're saving money. Like, I'm going to go shop for some deals. Like the Nordstrom men's half yearly sale. Now, all you guys out there, Nordstrom's, they're pretty cool. They're up there. I love Nordstrom. Men's half yearly sale. I'm going through there. All right. Is there a new Hugo Boss suit out there on sale? All right, cool. I'm more excited about the deal than the suit sometimes. And get that mentality. I love that you were proud of my effective rate's 4%. Again, that's a badge of honor, right? I mean, get excited about it, people. It's cool.
Yeah. That's so good, Mark, because I think, you really have to be the captain of your own ship, right? You have to own your own wealth, right? Because no one is going to have, give it the amount of importance that it should, like yourself. I mean, it's similar to your health, right? You can't outsource your health to your doctor and just go in and have him tell you to make all the right moves. Right? You've got to own the knowledge. You've got to take action. You've got to implement there. And then he's on your support team. It's just like that with your wealth, right? And if you can build up your asset protection, your CPAs, but you're the one driving that ship. So really great advice there. Mark, what are the best places that people can reach out? We're going to make sure to put all the links in the show notes. So many great resources that you gave out. But what are some of the top ones for people to check you out?
Thank you so much. For that personal consultation and review, which I just recommend to so many people, unless you're all over it already and you feel like, Mark, you didn't tell me anything new. If I really didn't tell you anything new and you're all over it, then don't worry about it. But I think so many of your listeners need that review. Go to KKOS as in Sam, lawyers.com, KKOSlawyers.com, and schedule a comprehensive review, tax or estate or asset protection, and just start that trifecta and that journey. Also at my personal site, markjkohler.com, KOHLER.com, you can get over there and get access to my blog articles, YouTube channel, social media, podcast, and whatever medium you like to learn. Start just picking it up a little. I do one podcast a week. I'm not freaking daily for 3 hours. Holy hell. So just one podcast a week for 30, 40 minutes on a killer topic and some prior podcasts that'll rock your world. And finally, if your accountant who you love will listen to you and they need more education and should get certified on this, and introduce them to my Tax Pro network. It's at Mark J. Kohler, Certified Tax Pros, Main Street Tax Pros. And tell them, I'm going to upgrade if you don't. That was an insert. Go to your accountant and say, if you don't upgrade your skills in this area, I am, and we're going to have to say goodbye. Now that freaks you out because my dad's accountant. I've been with him for 20 years. Yeah, do you know how much they're costing you? So either demand that they get certified in some street smart site, and they're going to go, well, I go to all the CE and I've been certified with this. I'm a certified public accountant. So am I. I'm a CPA. They don't teach you this crap on the CPA exam or in a master's program. You tell them, oh, really, when was the last time you actually didn't fall asleep in CE? It's the worst. All of my training is CE anyway, but it's there to help people become an advisor. And if you can't get your accountant to get on the ship, go get a new one. And at markjkohler.com, I have my Tax Pro network with hundreds of enrolled agents and CPAs, young and old, East Coast, West Coast, and they don't have to be down the freaking street. Get on a Zoom call, get on a phone call, do a discovery, find out if they're a good fit for you, and get a new freaking accountant.
Awesome. Can't thank you enough, Mark. So many great insights there. I know I'm going to be diving in as well. I can never stop learning about this topic because, I am in charge of my own wealth, right? So it's all what you make of it. But really, thanks again for your time and insights. Most appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Dave. I hope to be back, and appreciate all you're doing to help the business owners of America. They need it. Wall Street's not going to take care of them. It's up to you and me and a few others. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wealth Strategy Secrets. If you'd like to get a free copy of the book, go to holisticwealthstrategy.com. That's holisticwealthstrategy.com. If you'd like to learn more about upcoming opportunities at Pantheon, please visit pantheoninvest.com. That's pantheoninvest.com.